It's true, the architectural plans for the third temple in Jerusalem are complete and ready for submission to the Jerusalem Planning and Building Committee for approval. There are some people who may make bad assumptions about which organization is doing this, which I will get into later in this video. But before we get into the details, let's talk about the history, this last day's prophecy, and how it's a sign of the times and what it means. This 37-acre piece of property is widely considered the most hotly contested piece of land on the planet when it comes to the intersection of religion, geopolitics, and history. Jews, Muslims, and Christians all have their sacred scriptures state that this land was given to Abraham, the progenitor of all three of these religions. All three religions believe that Abraham nearly sacrificed his son atop Mount Moriah, which is the modern-day city of Jerusalem. Although Jews and Christians believe it was Isaac, Sarah's firstborn, that was nearly sacrificed, and the Muslims believe it was Ishmael, the older son from Abraham's concubinical wife Hagar. Throughout several places in Genesis, God promises Abraham the land of Israel for his inheritance. Then the land of Israel, and specifically Jerusalem, was controlled by the Canaanites, then the Egyptians, then the Jebusites, until King David conquered Israel. King Solomon, his son, builds the first temple in Jerusalem on what is now known as the Temple Mount. This temple is destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BC. By this time, the 10 tribes had already been taken away by the Assyrians, leaving primarily the tribe of Judah. Then, in 539 BC, the Persian Empire takes control and Jews are allowed to return, and the second temple is built on the Temple Mount, although I'm skipping a lot of details because this was later enhanced further by Herod the Great. Alexander the Great gains control of Jerusalem in 332 BC, and we have the Maccabean revolt beginning in 167, returning the city to Israelite control for about 100 years, until the Romans take control in 63 BC, until they raise the city of Jerusalem in 70 AD, destroying the Second Temple, and when they do, they fulfill Christ's prophecy that not one stone shall be left upon another. The Temple Mount is left desolate. 132 AD began the Bar Kokhba revolt, and Jews were banned from Jerusalem. Then in 324 AD, under Constantine, the Byzantine Christian Empire takes control and builds sites, but the Temple Mount is largely neglected. Then in 638 AD, Muslim control begins, and the Dome of the Rock is built in 691. Then control flips to Christian crusaders in 1099, but is then recaptured by Muslims in 1187 AD. Then the Ottoman Empire takes control in 1517 until the British take control after World War I in 1917. Then in 1948, the Jordanians take control until 1967, where after the 6 Days War, control is returned to Israel where it stands today. Here is a graphical overview of Jerusalem's control in a bit more detail, as my previous description didn't get into smaller skirmishes between the same religious groups. But you can see how often this piece of land has traded hands. The Temple Mount remains extremely contested. While Israel controls security and access to the site, the Islamic Waqf administers religious functions on the Temple Mount, while Jordan has custodial oversight, all while the international community remains divided on sovereignty due to unresolved status of East Jerusalem in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Dome of the Rock is the Muslims' third most holy site in the world, but these buildings prevent the Jews from building the third temple, which they believe is a requirement for the coming Messiah, all while the Christians believe the same temple is a prerequisite for the second coming of Jesus Christ. So this is the site that most everyone agrees needs to be the location of the third temple. Some people ask why they just can't share the site, as it seems to have plenty of space for two structures. That would be a little bit like the Green Bay Packers being willing to give half of their stadium to the Chicago Bears if that were a 4,000-year-old holy war where millions had died instead of a 100-year rivalry over rings. The Temple Institute has put out a video on why the temple location cannot be changed, which I'll put in the description below. It also describes why both structures can't both be present at the same time. So no one wants to share, and I'm not kidding when I say that a forceful takeover of this 37 acres would likely cause World War III. So let's talk about the third temple and the architectural plans. There are many prophecies throughout Scripture that discuss the third temple in the last days. Ezekiel 40 to 48 in particular describes the temple in painstaking detail. The Temple Institute in Israel has taken the descriptions found in Ezekiel and have created architectural plans. They changed some of the materials, including the use of glass, steel, and modern stairways, and even included an elevator. They also had to change the proportions due to some space limitations on the Temple Mount itself. This is a model based on those designs. This image takes a rough sketch of the temple and has it superimposed over the current Temple Mount, and you can see the size and scale of it compared to the current Dome of the Rock. This is a massive temple complex that fills much of the Temple Mount. These architectural plans are complete, and the Temple Institute in Jerusalem are ready to submit them to the Jerusalem Planning and Building Committee for approval. The Temple Institute, founded in 1987 in Jerusalem's Old City, is a religious organization dedicated to preparing for the rebuilding of the Jewish Third Temple. It focuses on recreating sacred temple vessels, educating the public, and conducting research based on biblical traditions. They have even created 3D renderings and walkthroughs of the temple and the courtyard. In the description below, I'll include a link to another video where they have an extensive walkthrough for those that are interested in researching further. The Temple Institute has a museum in Jerusalem not far from the Temple Mount in the Old Jewish Quarter, where you can go and see a 1/100th scale model of the Second Temple, but even more exciting than that is you can see artifacts that have been created that will actually be used in the Third Temple once complete. But there is one big prerequisite before they can submit the Third Temple plans for building approval. The Temple Mount must be cleared of all existing structures. So while the plans are ready to be submitted, they cannot do that until the Dome of the Rock and the other structures are removed or relocated. So while it is exciting to know that the plans are created, building cannot begin until the biggest geopolitical powder keg in the world has been worked out. This needs to happen before the Jewish Messiah will come according to their beliefs, and likewise before the second coming of Jesus Christ according to Christian beliefs. Both require the Third Temple in Jerusalem to be built prior. This remains one of the key signs of the times, and more than half of the world's religions anxiously await as the Muslims look to protect their third most holy site, while Jews push for the temple being built and Christians wait and hope based on one of the most anticipated fulfillments of prophecy of all time. Thanks for watching.